At the time of writing this review, I have just finished the first two issues of Marvel's King Conan, published in the modern year, #current year, taking place in the age of Conan after he takes the throne of Aquilonia. My assumption is that this will be a miniseries, and so far it has, in my opinion, done a fair amount of justice to the characters of Conan and Thoth Amon. It's no secret that most modern comics are filled more with political opinions and endless talking, droning on and on, than they are action or well-written plots. While it is still possible that this could turn into a terrible story about how King Conan needs to become a stay-at-home dad subjected to the will of a terrible woman who runs his life only to divorce him and take all his money, a la Catwoman, as of right now, I judge it to be an amazing story. As the story is told out of order, so too will I be making this review. This is your only spoiler warning because as of now, I do recommend you read this comic. The narrative presented to us and the point of the comic is to give the character of Conan an expanded epilogue, if you will, similar in nature and so far in quality to Mike Mignola's Hellboy Goes to Hell. When I relate these two stories, what I mean to say is that without altering the character too much, they give them deaths that would make very real sense for the character in question. Hellboy dies on an apocalyptic Earth fighting monsters and eventually has to take over for his genetic father, but rules with a slightly less iron and far more common sense use of force fist than when anything tries to escape hell. The two storylines in the book are first, after Conan eventually leaves the throne of Aquilonia, assumably to his son, who we'll get to in a bit, he, in this timeline, comes face to face for the first time with Thoth Amon on an island of the dead, as both have to fight for survival while also fighting each other. The second is the coming-of-age story of his son, Prince Khan of Aquilonia. There are a lot of historical parallels being drawn between King Conan and Marcus Aurelius here, as both were famously great rulers, which the book does a good job of establishing, who had overwhelmingly sheltered and spoiled sons. However, Khan is not as hedonistic as Commodus was in real life. He seemingly inherited his father's religious views of Crom and what already feels like a watered-down, superficial version of the philosophy of will to power that comes with it. Khan is concerned with the common-sense rule of his kingdom and is very educated in the way one would expect royalty to be. He's spoiled not by our standards in the sense of him being a bad person, but by the standards of Conan, who came to power through his own strength and will. A great moment of characterization for this new character, and the moment in the comic that made me want to recommend it, again, big spoiler warning, is when Conan is about to become the Crom of Khan's life. At this time, neither we as the reader or Khan have any idea that what is about to happen will happen. And used to the life of a pampered prince, Khan thinks his father has arranged a marriage for him. And he even voices this, because this is such a common occurrence for him. He's used to a spoiled life, in the sense that he has not gone through the ringer as Conan has. In response to this, Conan says, "Whatever you have on you is all you'll leave with. And until you can bring me a tale from every land on the map, you won't be allowed back. You are exiled from Aquilonia. Let no one bar your journey back home, be they man or god or beast from hell." At this moment, I knew I was going to like Conan I knew I was going to like Khan as a character, and King Conan became a title I thought worth keeping up with. It's a line right out of Robert E. Howard's view of the character if he ever had children. This brought the same feeling to me as Alexander's great answer to his sons when they asked him who would inherit his vast kingdom. His answer to his 7 spoiled sons? To the strongest. Thoth Amon, as I said, is also characterized very well here, as in this timeline, this is the first time they are meeting, meaning the person who wrote this actually bothered to read the Conan stories. Conan and Thoth Amon are not truly supposed to meet face to face for most of their technical interactions. One of the best parts about their relationship as characters is how minimal it is, with both parties ruining the other's plans or goals without really coming into direct conflict. Thoth Amon, despite growing up in civilized Stygia instead of being raised in tribal Samaria, or Vanaheim, depending on the version of the character, still born in Samaria, but in some versions he's trained in Vanaheim among the Nordheimer, was just as much an underdog. The same hard life lessons that taught the lost boy Conan the riddle of steel and the way of the warrior taught in a different way Thoth Amon political backstabbing and plotting, which is part of what makes him a great character. Thoth Amon is driven by an inferiority complex, feeding his lust for control due to his childhood of poverty, abuse, and criminality. Both through force of will, raised themselves to power and wanted true freedom, which could be found in being so powerful no one may conquer them. The love and pride Conan has for Crom and Samaria is the same feeling that Thoth Amon has for Stygia and Set, with the caveat that Thoth Amon is almost always interested more in power, but that still gives him a sense of mutual respect for Set, because that's part of why Set favors him, and it's part of why he favors Set. It's kind of like, yeah, you're trying to screw me over, a little mortal, and I think that's quite funny. And he's like, oh yeah, you'll think it's funny when I have all your power. That's sort of his relationship with Set, but Thoth Amon is still a great character because of that. This comic gets that across in only a few words. After years of serving those who thought themselves my betters, I'll finally achieve my true potential with the blood of you, King Conan of Aquilonia. His lust for power is communicated without any break in the action, a sad common flaw for those familiar with modern comics writing. Lastly, Conan is still his same primal but stoic self, with no changes to make him over-emotional, pathetic, or weak, as we've seen in countless comic book properties. We get a lengthy 4-page intro to the character in issue 1, drawing on parallels from the movies and games and books and comics, before heading into the first active fight scene between him and Amon, which lasts for the rest of the issue, leading into issue 2, where we get the exile of Khan and the furthering of the pseudo team-up between the two enemies. Again, great comic. I don't know what else to say. I hope you enjoyed this mumbly, mush-mouthed review.